is Oromo Voice Radio English program. Oromo Voice Radio is broadcasting to Oromia at 16-meter band or 17,850 kilohertz or on oromovoice.org website. OVR broadcasts Oromia Insight program every Monday for 15 minutes at 7:15 p.m. Oromia local time. Welcome to Oromia Insight program.
Welcome to Oromia Insight. My name is Ali Galeto. This is part 5 and the last part of Professor Abbas Ganamo interview about conquest and the resistance in Ethiopian Empire from 1880 to 1974.
That's, of course, the interesting side of the states. I think in the Western tradition, people tend to say as if they are the only people to develop a democratic system. But in many traditional societies, people succeeded in forging, creating a democratic form of government. So what is very interesting is simply many people do not know how the Oromo succeeded eventually to build this workable, functional, coherent system of government. So, as you know, one of our colleagues, Asmarom Lagase, worked a lot on this. And, of course, he was surprised. It's also a lifetime project for him to explain what made the Gada and how the Gada was made. It is simply part of our identity. I cannot really tell you how it started. What we all know from, as you saw from my book, is simply how this system evolved from perhaps simple military activity by young people into a well-conceived political system. So we don't exactly know the origin of the idea. It was simply not borrowed from Europeans because Europeans didn't develop democracy before 17th, 18th centuries. Europeans developed liberal democracy from what they call Enlightenment. Enlightenment was simply a movement for justice, for equality, liberty, which took place in Europe between 17th centuries. But from evidence we know that the Oromos under Gada system during 16th century, 14th century. Most of the Gada terms were existing during this time. What we know was also the Oromo simply organized a republican form of government, which is simply open for elections, which people are elected freely without fighting, where power is transferred peacefully, and where leaders apply what you call Sera Gada, Sera, which is Sera itself, of course, democratically created, modified every 8 years, like Western governments. And when they don't like the Sera, the laws, they changed it. Does the law apply to everyone? And no one simply is struggling to hold power. So they leave the power by peaceful means without any struggle. And also they can be overthrown every 4 years because they have to report their activities. And if their work is not satisfactory, then of course they are ousted. So this is really one of the system which is based on refined, sophisticated republican form of government, which ensures social justice, which ensured, of course, equality in the true meaning of the term. But at the same time, the Gada leaders had the capacity even to pronounce capital punishment. It's called kuchu. If someone is not, after being advised, after being, of course, counseled for a serious crime, he can be simply be killed. So which means that really a real power, but the Gada system really worked so well for many people. And I assure you that FRC, they actually succeeded in mobilizing this large number. It is related to the Gada military tradition. So it is one of the remarkable aspects of their creation, perhaps the original contributions the Oromo people made to world history. By the way, some Europeans even felt the Oromo are simple people. They are not capable of developing this sophisticated system, very rational system. But they couldn't come up with the idea from where they borrowed because this system didn't exist. Therefore, I think we are all proud that they simply, over generations, over centuries, they came up with this refined republican form of government. So it is really one of the things of which Oromo should be proud.
How Oromo consensus building in Oromo political culture during resistance and now?
At the time, for some reason, the Oromo society was coherent and perhaps not really stratified into rich and very poor. And of course, they had what they call Safu culture. Once you agree, you respect. So what happened, for example, during this Menelik's war was simply all RCs agreed to select two individuals to represent them, to go to Menelik and see him. And they were told that the RC have to accept surrender, peaceful surrender, if they want to be saved. So these people returned and convened practically all RC representatives in one place and decided to go together to war. So that means it's consensus. One of the things about the Oromo society was simply the freedom of expression. I think we who come from that society still know that the RC society, no one discouraged to talk in public, even in the face of elders. You simply can express your complaint. You are listened to respectfully. Many people simply arrive at conclusion of any case through consensus. So unfortunately, today's society underwent many changes because some of them were assimilated into Ethiopian political culture. Sometimes many people simply have these elements of influence of the power and hierarchy, which is related to Amhara power. And also, we have also developed individualism and greed, which is also perhaps less in traditional Oromo society. The other side also of the coin is somehow also many Oromos are converted to different religions. This also plays some role, and also don't forget the other also now political ideological division. People may think differently about the same issues, so we simply makes this consensus very difficult as compared to when societies were coherent, lived together in harmony. That doesn't necessarily mean this consensus is not possible today. It is possible. What is needed is simply the what you call thoughtful and inspiring leadership who can rekindle, of course, the hope and, of course, aspiration of Oromo people, and, of course, who can really succeed in making this consensus. So it is possible. What is needed is, of course, someone who can restore the lost hope, because many people still didn't lose their hope. What is needed is simply quite, steady leadership, coherent leadership, people who simply mean what they say what they mean, not people simply do not mean what they say. So that means the people who are trusted, and so on and so forth. The best example I can give you is during the 1960s, there were people who organized the Machiat Ulama Association. I think I remember as very young, at the age of 8, when I went to the meeting, all RC regions simply came, all RC people came to this meeting because they trusted the leadership of Machiat Ulama Association, because the issues were important for the RC people and for Oromo people in general. In the same way, OLF itself, of course, got support, quite remarkable support in 1990s, but this is no more. So what you need is simply to rethink, of course, leadership and the strategies, and of course, how we can unite the Oromo people. So I think still a consensus is possible, but there is a lot of work to do to reach the many cleavage, regional cleavage, religious cleavage, and so on and so forth. I am optimistic, of course, it can be done.
As someone who knows about the Oromo past, what does the future hold for Oromo?
You are asking me a very difficult question because historians are not really prophets, and no one can really predict what will happen in the coming years or in the coming decades, because that's simply very difficult to do. But I think from judging from history, I know one thing. One thing I know is simply no empire will last forever. One of the things about empire, because I discussed in more details about empire, no empire without end. So all empire ends, all empire collapse, and of course the issue is, of course, what comes next. That means the imperial subjects will not be imperial subject forever. So if you believe there is an empire, one day this empire will go away. So as African proverb says, no situation remains permanent, which means that things will change. those of my generation couldn't easily believe Haile Selassie would be overthrown easily. And of course, we also couldn't believe Mengistu would be easily overthrown that easily. And of course, although the current government looks like big and strong, of course, it will not be there for a long time, not forever. So I think that's why many Oromos simply have to think beyond, of course, the daily difficulties. And I know that the Oromos have to look at, of course, their experiences, what they did good, what they did bad over the last 4 decades, and then take from there. One of the difficulties, as you know, is simply we failed in many ways. For example, one of the problems we have is those who believed in armies struggle, who took arms to bring about the desired change, have little to show in terms of record for the effort they made. That's, of course, one of the saddest stories, because it simply there's little to show to achieve their goal. And on the other side, also, those who believe they can bring about change through peaceful and democratic means, have even less to say how they will achieve their goals. That's the difficulty. So, on the one hand, people who struggled through armies have little to show, and of course, those people who believe that they can really bring about democratic change cannot really show much, and they cannot really, I don't think they even believe that they can do it. Deep down, they know that democracy and empire are not compatible. They are incompatible. So the Oromo should be ready to learn from these failures and the successes, and have to find a way of uniting, again, creating a cohesion to move forward. I know if people are united, they cannot be defeated no matter which path they take. So that's, of course, my belief. I don't see any reason why the Oromo people have to settle for the status quo, in which they have become sociological minority, marginalized and pauperized in their own land. What I mean is simply the Oromo claim they are 40 million, but they can be ruled easily by 44 million or by less than 44 million people. So that is simply something which the Oromo should accept. It's not enough to say we are 40 million, but at the same time accepting to become sociological minority, although they are numeric majority in the land. So I hope the Oromo leaders, civic organizations, find a way to find, of course, solution and uniting the Oromo people again.
That's actually a good way of ending it. Thank you very much, Professor. We really had a good chat and learned a little bit about our history. I hope our audience also enjoyed and learned a lot from you. And conquest in the resistance in Ethiopian Empire from 1880 to 1974, the case of R.C. Oromo. It is, I think, online. You can go online and buy the book and read to learn your history. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, Obo Ali, and that really is an excellent opportunity to talk to my people. Of course, we teach on daily basis. This is really an excellent opportunity for me to discuss my book and some of the issues